Hello everyone, Francis Walsh here again with the digitalmerchant.com, and today we're going to be looking at Flippa.com. So Flippa.com is essentially a business flipping website or platform. If you need to buy or sell an online business, this is essentially a platform that will connect you with buyers or sellers depending on what you need. So yeah, let's have a look at what it offers. So basically, I suppose the first thing to be aware of here is that buying or selling a business, obviously, as you'll be aware if you're involved, is a big decision. There's a lot of risk involved, potentially a lot of money involved, and always a lot of emotion involved too when you're something you're involved in and that you've spent time building. What a lot of people overlook here, in my experience, is the fact that the platform that you pick to either buy or sell a business can have a huge impact on the success or failure of the endeavor. Like, a lot of people think they've spent time building up their business and putting together their revenue streams and, you know, making their pitch and whatever it is, and that's where the real work is. And I suppose that is true. But the little window of time at the end of this process during which you kind of put together the deal can have a huge bearing on how successful it ends up being. And choosing the right platform might seem insignificant. You might be tempted to go with the first one you see just to save time, but there are really important differences between these platforms. So picking the one that's best suited to your business and your requirements, it's really, really important. So I suppose we're going to have a look at how Flippa fits into that equation. So Flippa is essentially your self-serve marketplace. So you can kind of think of Flippa as the Uber of this space. It's automated. It's an online first platform. And it's a DIY approach to getting connected with a buyer or with a seller. It's been around since 2009, so it's kind of grown up with the explosion in online business, I suppose, that we've seen over the last couple of decades. It's been around through it all. And I suppose a crucial consideration here, and I'll cover this in a little bit more detail as the video goes on, but it's open to pretty much everyone. There's no revenue minimums. So no matter how small your business is, or no matter how small the business is that you're looking to purchase, you can find something on Flippa, and there's something to be said for being there. Now, there are pluses and minuses to this, as I'm going to cover in a little bit more detail. So the fact that there's no entry barrier essentially means that it's easy to list business assets of all sizes. So if you have a blog that you want to get rid of, a domain name, anything like that, that's, you know, kind of small, it might only be a small part of your portfolio, you can still kind of find a home for it on Flippa. There'll be someone out there who is looking to buy something like that. And particularly if you look at the second point here, because of the huge global buyer pool, you have access to a huge network of buyers if you're selling anything on Flippa. And so no matter kind of how niche it is or how small it is, you'll probably find someone who wants to take it off your hands. And especially as well with maybe assets that aren't performing as they should be, or they're, you know, you maybe just don't have the time or the resources to get the revenue out of them that they could get. There are a lot of buyers out there who are looking for those kinds of assets, who are looking to kind of get them at a good price and then turn them around. So yeah, essentially, no matter what you're selling, you can find something on Flippa, or you can find a kind of a pathway on Flippa that's sold. Another kind of plus that I would think with Flippa is it's transparent pricing. I'm not saying it's necessarily cheap. So basically, it charges a monthly listing fee and then also a success fee once the transaction goes through. Now, those listing fees can add up depending on how long your business is listed for. But it's very transparent. There's tiered pricing, so depending on like what tools you need and what kind of level of support you require, there's a price point that will suit that. And so I suppose, yeah, in terms of being able to budget for the transaction ahead of time, that's a big plus, because you don't get that kind of transparency everywhere, and it can make things more difficult when you don't have it. And then I suppose another big, probably this I'd say is the biggest advantage of Flippa, is that they're really quick with getting things turned around. So you can kind of expect, if everything falls into place for you, you can expect your deal to be done within days. And you know, other platforms, it could take months. And again, this kind of feeds into the market segment that Flippa really caters to. So if you have, like, as I said, a small asset, a small little part of your business portfolio that you want to get rid of, but you don't really want to spend too much time on it or devote too much energy to it, that's brilliant. You list it, get it turned over in a couple of days, and just get on with your life and with the rest of your business. So then I suppose on the other side, I've named this slide cons of using Flippa, but really what it is, it's just about knowing where you kind of stand in the market and what platform is best suited to you on that basis. So, the cons of it, so to speak, are that it's because it's so high volume, because it's DIY, you don't get that level of support that maybe you get elsewhere. And therefore, it's maybe not that suitable for higher earning businesses that are, they're successful, they're generating revenue, and, you're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort getting the right exit. You'd probably be better off looking elsewhere, if that's your situation. So I suppose specifically because there's so little vetting and because it's a DIY platform, there's quite a high scam risk or even just low quality buyers. So there's a lot of users out there that are either looking to scam you or else that are just kind of not really serious buyers. That might just be tire kickers. They might contact you just out of curiosity, just trying to maybe get some business information for other purposes or whatever it is. These kinds of individuals will be filtered out much more effectively on other platforms, but you do get a lot of them on Flippa. The other big drawback here is the fact that because Flippa allows for self-reported data, you're getting inflated valuations a lot of the time. I mean, companies will just kind of basically tell you their revenues or their business models are much higher, much more successful than they really are. And so you do have to do a lot of your own homework to make sure that what you're buying is actually a good investment. So it's just something to be aware of. And look, you always do have the option to do your own homework. I mean, that information will always be accessible to you if you ask the right questions and you do the right research. But it's just kind of important to be aware that it is a problem. It is something that you're going to have. So I suppose then, in summation, in terms of what I was saying just there, the best use case for Flippa is for your smaller projects, your side hustles, your starter sites, that kind of thing. If it's low impact, low priority, and you just want to get it sold, Flippa is a great place to do that. It's it's convenient, quick, it's relatively cheap, and it's all of those things. It's also good, and this is potentially maybe less considered. It's also good for testing market interest. So if you're at the point where you're considering making a sale, you're not exactly sure what kind of money you'll get or what the process will look like, Flippa is a good place to kind of test that out and just see what kind of responses you get. And then, once you sift through maybe the less relevant responses, you'll probably get a few good ones that will give you an idea of where the market is at for what you're selling and what you're likely to make and what the process might look like. And so it's a good starter point in that. So then I suppose the next step here is we're going to look at some alternatives. And as I was saying, it's all depending on where you're at. If you're selling a bigger business, a successful venture that's generating revenue and is in a position to make good money, you're going to want a more, I suppose, comprehensive support service, a better platform that's going to devote more of time and attention to you. My recommendation here is Quiet Light. I think Quiet Light do a fantastic job in this space. For serious online businesses looking for a well-supported exit that where they're going to be taken care of, I think Quiet Light does a fantastic job. And so I think one of the key kind of selling points of Quiet Light is that it has a network of brokers that have themselves been successful in entrepreneurship. They've been where you are. They've bought and sold businesses and they've done these transactions, so they know what's required to get it done successfully. They have a lot of trust in the market. They've really, really robust vetting processes. And the valuations are going to be a lot more trustworthy. So you're not going to be left doing a lot of the homework that maybe you would have to do if you're conducting all this through Flippa. So to be honest, they really are my recommendation if you're in that position. If you have a serious business that you want to sell, I think there's no reason to look much further than Quiet Light. The next alternative I'm going to look at, and this is kind of at the same level as Quiet Light in terms of like service, is Empire Flippers. So Empire Flippers is all about curation. It's all about kind of funneling buyers and sellers that are on the same wavelength together, so that you don't really have to sift through as many irrelevant offers. You'll get fewer offers overall, but the ones you get will be of higher quality. They structure their service on the usual kind of commission-based pricing. And they have a 2-month exclusivity option, which I'm a big fan of. So basically, if things aren't going your way with the transaction after 2 months, you have the option to delist and to try and conduct your business elsewhere. Things don't always go that well in this space. Things can go wrong. They can just not go as you expect. So it's handy to have that, I suppose, get out of jail free card. One issue I do kind of want to flag here, though, is that Empire Flippers do have a reputation for inconsistent or slow customer support. This is a big red flag for me, to be honest, because I think in this space, when it's such a high value interaction and when there's so much on the line, you really want to make sure you're getting proper customer support and customer care. So that for me would kind of just push me back towards Quiet Light again. I just feel as though it's too big to ignore. But a lot of people have had good experiences with Empire Flippers, so it's certainly worth looking at if you're weighing up a few. And then the last alternative I'm going to look at here is acquire.com. This is kind of on the same end of the spectrum as Flippa in that it's mainly a DIY platform. I do kind of prefer the way that things work in some sense on acquire.com. I think the UX is a bit cleaner, and I think it's a little bit more specialized too. It kind of works mainly with SaaS and micro startups and companies in that kind of space. And so obviously if you're in that space or you're looking to buy a company of that nature, it's good to have that level of specialization. It just makes things that bit easier. It does offer better support than Flippa, but as I was saying, it's still pretty much a DIY platform. It's, you're not going to get the level of support that you'll get with Quiet Light, we'll say, or with Empire Flippers. So yeah, it's fine for acqui-hires or small startup exits, that kind of thing. But again, if it's a bigger business with significant revenue streams, I would probably look for something with a little bit more support. So all in all, who should use Flippa? I mean, I've covered this pretty much already. It's essentially for your side hustles, for, if you're a first-time buyer, you're testing the waters, or if it's just something that's not a huge priority, it's not a fundamental part of your portfolio and you just need to turn it over and get on with your life. That's kind of what Flippa is great for. It's quick, it's convenient, it's cost-effective. So yeah, it has everything you'd be looking for in that way. And then conversely, if you're selling a bigger business, something that's more important, something that requires a little bit more support and kind of a comprehensive background check and verification of revenue streams, all that kind of thing, I would recommend Quiet Light all day. I think they provide a great service, and I think that they are just the best partner for that kind of transaction. So yeah, that's pretty much all from me on this one. I'll see you in the next video.